The morning started with a ruckus as Cousin Tom burst into our house.
Aunt Mary! Where's Cousin Emma? My dad found her a job!
I was used to these disruptions, having felt like an outsider in this family for over a decade. Today was special though. I had just finished my high school entrance exams and felt confident about my results. But instead of celebrating, I was blindsided by their decision about my future.
Who told your dad to decide my future? I want to study and go to college.
Tom's eyes filled with disdain, quickly turning into mockery.
You? College? You're just a girl. What do you need college for? Look around our village. No girls go to college. Aunt Mary is kind enough to let you finish middle school before sending you to work. Aren't you satisfied? How long do you plan to leech off our family?
Since my father's early passing, my mom had become almost subservient to Uncle Robert's family. This house naturally became old Mr. Lee's home, and I became the outsider, the burden.
This is my room. Who let you in? Get out.
Tom sneered and started throwing my things into the yard.
These textbooks, useless. This songbook? Trash. This yearbook? Throw it away. This.
He suddenly picked up a piece of clothing, my underwear, and I saw that disgusting smile on his face.
This is my room. Who let you in? Get out.
Just then, my mom's voice came from outside.
What's all the noise about?
My heart sank with fear. Cousin Tom immediately put on a pitiful face and ran to my mom.
Aunt Linda, you're here. I told Cousin Emma she could stay in the factory dorm, and I could have this room, but she yelled at me.
My mom glanced at me, then at the mess Tom had made on the floor.
Did you throw these things on the floor?
Yes, but...
Pick them up and put them back.
What?
Tom looked at my mom, stunned, and I was puzzled by her sudden change in attitude.
Pick them up.
Tom, unable to believe what was happening, started crying.
I'll tell my dad.
But my mom grabbed him by the collar and pulled him back.
Pick up the things first.
Tom stubbornly refused, sitting on the floor and crying. I quickly bent down to pick up the items, but my mom stopped me.
Don't move. He threw them, he should pick them up.
I was stunned. When did my mom become so reasonable? She suddenly reached out to touch my head, and I instinctively flinched.
Lily, I'm sorry for all the hardship I've caused you. From now on, I promise to make it up to you and never let you suffer again.
As she spoke, tears streamed down her face. She turned to Tom, who was still sitting on the floor, and her anger flared up again.
Crying! You're supposed to be a man, strong and dependable. How can you keep picking on your cousin? Get up and pick up those things, or you'll cry here all day.
Tom, a stubborn boy, only cried louder, expecting someone to come and comfort him. My mom scoffed, locked the courtyard gate, and pulled me inside.
Cry all you want. If you stop, I'll give you another beating.
Tom cried even louder. But human energy has its limits, and his voice couldn't hold out forever. Exhausted, he sat on the floor, panting. But he would rather sit there than give in and pick up the things. Hearing the silence, my mom stormed out and gave him another beating, making him cry again. Every time Tom got tired, my mom would go out and encourage him, keeping the cycle going until noon. My mom turned to Cousin Tom, who was still sitting on the floor, and her anger flared up again. She kicked him, sending him rolling across the floor.
Crying! You're supposed to be a man, strong and dependable. How can you keep picking on your cousin? Get up and pick up those things, or you'll cry here all day.
Cousin Tom, a stubborn boy, only cried louder, expecting someone to come and comfort him. Yes, this tactic had always worked for him before.
Cry all you want. If you stop, I'll give you another beating.
Cousin Tom cried even louder. But human energy has its limits, and his voice couldn't hold out forever. Exhausted, he sat on the floor, panting. He would rather sit there than give in and pick up the things. Hearing the silence, my mom stormed out and gave him another beating, making him cry again. Every time Cousin Tom got tired, my mom would go out and encourage him, keeping the cycle going until noon. My mom turned to Cousin Tom, who was still on the floor, her anger flaring up again. She delivered a swift kick, sending him rolling across the floor.
Crying! You're supposed to be a man, strong and dependable. How can you keep picking on your cousin? Get up and pick up those things, or you'll cry here all day.
Cousin Tom, a stubborn boy, only cried louder, expecting someone to come and comfort him as this tactic had always worked for him before.
Cry all you want. If you stop, I'll give you another beating.
Cousin Tom cried even louder. But human energy has its limits, and his voice couldn't hold out forever. Exhausted, he sat on the floor, panting. He would rather sit there than give in and pick up the things. Hearing the silence, my mom stormed out and gave him another beating, making him cry again. Every time Cousin Tom got tired, my mom would go out and encourage him, keeping the cycle going until noon. As time passed, I gradually adapted to no longer being the Cinderella of the house and began to get used to Uncle Robert and Cousin Tom taking care of me. Life was much better than before. My relationship with my mom also improved significantly. Although there were still some barriers, we could at least have normal conversations.
I had a big deal to make today.
I was a bit puzzled. Over the years, my mom had been living off the compensation from my dad's passing. When did she start thinking about making money? When she returned, she was beaming.
I made millions.
It felt unreal to me.
Be careful, Mom. There are many scammers nowadays.
I have the ability to foresee the future. I just bought some stocks, and by next Monday, I'll have millions in my account.
Uncle Robert, who was watering the garden, came over to listen to my mom and immediately mocked her.
Sis, you've never worked a day in your life. When did you start dealing with the market? Do you know how deep the waters of the stock market are? The stock you bought, I looked at it a few days ago, and it's hopeless. It will only keep falling. You're just wasting money.
Uncle Robert is an old stock trader. Although he has always lost money in the stock market, he has years of experience. I thought he made sense and joined him in advising my mom.
You've lost money all your life. No right to advise me. You'll see, I'll soon bring us a good life.
A week later, Uncle Robert suddenly exclaimed while looking at his phone.
Oh my! It went up! The stock actually went up! This is going to make a fortune!
Uncle Robert was more excited than if he had bought the stock himself. He paced around the courtyard, unable to contain his excitement. Soon, my mom returned, looking radiant.
How much did you invest? The stock market surge is unbelievable!
I invested everything we had.
Everything? How much did you make?
His words were filled with naked jealousy.
I just sold everything. It went up more than tenfold, so we made a few million.
Ignoring Uncle Robert, who was frozen like a statue, she smiled warmly at me.
Lily, let's go. Today, Mom will take you out for a good time. Let's spend some money.
Hearing this, Uncle Robert immediately reacted, pulling Cousin Tom along and smiling obsequiously.
Sis, now that you've made a lot of money, take us along too. You see, we've been working hard lately.
Didn't you say I didn't understand stocks and was just wasting money?
Sis, you see, I was blind. I've been trading stocks for half my life and still don't understand as much as you. Why argue with a fool like me?
Unable to resist Uncle Robert's thick skin, my mom took them along to the amusement park. Although I was already a big kid, who could resist the allure of an amusement park? Just hearing the thrilling screams from the roller coaster outside made my heart race. In the past, Cousin Tom could go to the amusement park every year for his birthday, while I had to stay home washing dishes and doing chores. I didn't even know what the amusement park gate looked like. Everything before me was so new.
I want to play this and that.
If you want to play, ask your dad. Come on, dear, I'll buy you an all-access pass. You can play whatever you want today.
Uncle Robert immediately protested, pulling my mom aside.
You're being unfair and stingy despite making so much money.
I made the money, so it's mine. What does it have to do with you? Oh, didn't you say you should educate your own son? Now that your son wants to play, you don't want to pay?
But you didn't stop me from disciplining my son these past few days. And we've been working so hard.
That's what you owe us. How much work have I done for you? How much work has my daughter done for you? Can you even count? You've only worked for a few days, and you can't take it? Fine, I'll go to court tomorrow.
Hearing about money, Uncle Robert panicked and quickly stopped my mom, forcing a flattering smile.
Sis, you see, I was wrong. I've been trading stocks for half my life and still don't understand as much as you. Why argue with a fool like me?
Cousin Tom, still wanting to play, was immediately scolded by Uncle Robert.
Play, play, play. All you think about is playing. Useless.
Cousin Tom was left feeling wronged, but my mom pulled him over, comforted him, and then used her persuasive skills to make him feel better.
Dear nephew, boys shouldn't just think about playing. You should always think about how to take care of girls. That's how you find a good wife and have a happy family. Look at your dad, he's lazy. If you follow him, you'll end up the same, always getting scolded by your mom and too embarrassed to go home.
Uncle Robert was indeed spoiled and lazy, often getting scolded by his wife, which is why he liked coming to our house. Cousin Tom had already been somewhat tamed by my mom at home. After this real-life example, he was convinced he had been on the wrong path.
Aunt Mary, what should I do?
Follow your cousin. If she gets tired, take her to rest and buy her water. If she feels sick after a ride, take care of her and take pictures. Boys should know how to take pictures. Also, I now officially appoint you as her protector. Ensure her safety.
I was amazed by my mom's words. She could say all this without laughing. Cousin Tom, still immature, was easily swayed by my mom's words and happily stayed by my side, accompanying me on the rides. I saw Uncle Robert's face turn as dark as coal, but he dared not speak, standing there with a gloomy expression. That day was one of the happiest days of my life. Looking back, maybe when other kids were enjoying their childhood, I had already lost the right to play. I used to think the world was gray. I always sought others' approval, hoping to be praised by my mom and Uncle Robert, hoping Cousin Tom would stop bullying me. I felt like there was no end in sight. But now, I felt someone standing behind me unconditionally. That sense of support was so comforting, making the sunshine seem brighter. I tried almost all the rides in the amusement park that day. Even though I was scared on the roller coaster, I was still happy. In those moments of speed, I let go of all my burdens and armor, shouting and releasing years of pent-up emotions. When we left the amusement park, I was still in a daze from the exhilarating joy. I instinctively held my mom's hand, and she looked at me, her eyes welling up with tears. I realized my hand was warmly held. Although I felt a bit awkward, I didn't pull away. Maybe this is a beautiful dream after years of repression. Perhaps one day I'll wake up and face the cold reality again. At least, let me enjoy this motherly love now. I looked up and smiled at my mom. Tears finally streamed down her face.
Did you have fun? Let's go, Mom will take you to buy some nice clothes. A girl your age should be the most beautiful. My daughter should be pretty too.
My mom took my hand and headed straight to the mall, looking for various brand stores. She only cared if the clothes fit me, not the price. Shoes costing thousands of dollars, she bought without a second thought, buying several pairs for me to wear alternately. At school, I often saw classmates wearing beautiful branded shoes, showing off to each other, while I had to glue my worn-out canvas shoes together year after year. Looking at my new shoes in the mirror, I was so excited I almost cried. So, I also have the right to be beautiful. Seeing my reaction, my mom became even more enthusiastic, buying non-stop. As long as it fit me, she paid for it, turning Uncle Robert and Cousin Tom into walking storage racks. Cousin Tom, overwhelmed, complained a bit, only to be persuaded by my mom again.
I just told you to learn to protect girls. You're so strong, who else should carry the stuff? When you get married, you should care for your wife like this to be a good man. People will praise you for carrying all these bags.
Really?
Really? Do a good job, and I'll buy you new clothes later.
Cousin Tom was overjoyed, happily serving us. Seeing Cousin Tom happily serving us, I suddenly thought, for centuries, men have used similar tactics to instill patriarchal values. My mom's persuasion of Cousin Tom was nothing compared to that. Uncle Robert's face also looked better when he heard my mom would buy clothes for his son. We shopped until our legs were trembling and we couldn't walk anymore. By then, Uncle Robert and Cousin Tom were covered in shopping bags, attracting many stares. Cousin Tom looked at my mom with some resentment.
Aunt Mary, we left the mall. Didn't you say you'd buy me clothes too? I want those new Nike shoes.
We're going to buy them now. Boss, please pack this one.
Before Cousin Tom could finish, my mom had already walked to a street vendor outside the mall and picked up a piece of clothing. A sign next to it read everything $5. In the past, my mom would buy me new clothes from such street vendors. A $5 piece was already expensive, she had bought $3 pieces before. Most of the time, I wore clothes handed down from neighbors or relatives, even cheaper than these street vendor clothes. Seeing this, Cousin Tom's face fell, feeling deceived. He threw all the shopping bags on the ground.
I don't want this cheap stuff. Aunt Mary, you're so unfair. You bought all branded clothes for my cousin and just get me something from a street vendor?
Yes, sis, this is too unfair for the kids. We've been carrying all this stuff, and our arms are sore.
Unfair? You feel it's unfair now? When I favored your family before, I didn't hear you speak up for Lily. Do you want the clothes or not? If not, let's go.
Cousin Tom felt it was beneath him to wear cheap clothes. My mom ignored him, hailed a taxi, loaded the stuff into the trunk, and pulled me into the car. Uncle Robert and Cousin Tom tried to get in, but she stopped them.
You've stayed at our house long enough. Find your own way home. From now on, let's have less contact. Remember to repay the money on time.
The car sped away, leaving the father and son standing alone on the roadside. I almost felt sorry for them. My mom patted my head and sighed.
Lily, don't feel sorry for them. If I don't treat them this way, they'll come after us and ruin your life. What I did was already lenient.
My mom's words confused me. Could she really foresee the future? Linda turned to Cousin Tom, who was still sitting on the floor, and her anger flared up again. She kicked him, sending him rolling across the floor.
Crying! You're supposed to be a man, strong and dependable. How can you keep picking on your cousin? Get up and pick up those things, or you'll cry here all day.
Cousin Tom, a stubborn boy, only cried louder, expecting someone to come and comfort him. This tactic had always worked for him before.
Cry all you want. If you stop, I'll give you another scolding.
Cousin Tom cried even louder. But human energy has its limits, and his voice couldn't hold out forever. Exhausted, he sat on the floor, panting. But he would rather sit there than give in and pick up the things. Hearing the silence, Linda stormed out and gave him another beating, making him cry again. Every time Cousin Tom got tired, Linda would go out and encourage him, keeping the cycle going until noon. Aunt Lisa was furious with my mom and didn't invite us over for meals for several days. Meanwhile, the house in the provincial capital had been bought. It was a new house previously owned by a wealthy person who decided to move to another city after renovating it, so my mom bought it. Just as we were preparing to move, an unexpected guest arrived.
Who dares to mess with my child and bully me? Is there no justice left?
The voice was unmistakably Aunt Margaret's. Her loud voice was famous in the village, known far and wide as a notorious shrew. Soon, Aunt Margaret dragged Cousin Tom into our courtyard. As soon as she stepped in, she started cursing, saying the most unpleasant things, cursing me, my mom, and even my deceased dad.
I just went to my parents' house, thinking old Mr. Lee would help you settle Lily's job, freeing up the house for my son. How did this offend you? My son is the only heir of old Mr. Lee. Why should he wash dishes, clean the house, and sign IOUs for you? What a joke!
Aunt Margaret was in full swing with her scolding, but my mom remained calm and went out to greet her, which surprised me. My grandparents passed away early, and my mom had arranged Uncle Robert's marriage. So, whenever Aunt Margaret had any issues, my mom would handle them, fearing Aunt Margaret might have a falling out with Uncle Robert. If my mom had always been accommodating to Uncle Robert, she was even more so to Aunt Margaret, fearing she might feel wronged. Seeing my mom come out, Aunt Margaret found her target and pushed Cousin Tom in front of my mom, continuing her tirade.
Look! Look at your precious nephew. Who'll take care of you in your old age if not him? How could you be so heartless to bully him? Aren't you ashamed doing this for that little girl of yours? An outsider? Are you out of your mind?
Mom, Aunt Mary made me and Dad go shopping the other day, bought Cousin Emma lots of branded clothes, and made us buy a carpet. She even made us walk home.
My mom crossed her arms, looking at them calmly, unmoved by their performance. Seeing my mom's indifferent expression, Aunt Margaret became even angrier. She pulled out the IOU from her pocket and threw it in my mom's face.
Even a child can't stand what you're doing. Is this how a sister and aunt should behave? I heard from old Mr. Lee that you made millions from stocks. You don't lack this money. Tear up this IOU. And give us $3 million to buy a house for your nephew, who is about to start high school in the provincial capital.
Ordinary people might be shocked by Aunt Margaret's audacity, but I was used to it. In Aunt Margaret's eyes, My mom was like her mother-in-law, there to fulfill her every demand. She believed she was the supreme authority in the family, and my mom had to cater to her every whim.
Money owed must be repaid. This is what you owe me over the years. As for where your son wants to study or buy a house, that's your problem. Figure it out yourself.
Are you crazy?
I'm not crazy. Maybe I was before.
Aunt Margaret tore up the IOU.
Dream on if you think I'll repay you. I'll divorce your brother today. I'll only come back when you buy us a house.
With that, Aunt Margaret turned and left decisively, though her pace was slow, clearly waiting for my mom to stop her. Her divorce threats had always worked before. But today, my mom stood firm, unmoved.
Fine, you want me to divorce, right? Don't regret it.
After Aunt Margaret left, my mom went about her business, unaffected. She seemed genuinely determined not to worry about Uncle Robert's affairs anymore, focusing solely on me. When we were almost ready to move, Uncle Robert came to our door, looking miserable.
Sister, my dear sister. My wife wants to divorce me and take the child. Help me one last time. You have so much money, what's a little for a house?
What does my money have to do with you? My money is mine. And if your wife wants a divorce, why complain to me? Isn't it because you always leech off me and can't provide for her? If you could earn a house, would she still want a divorce?
Uncle Robert persisted, trying to persuade my mom to give him money. My mom, annoyed, kicked him in the leg, knocking him down.
Useless. Go find a job. You still owe me over 100,000. If you don't repay it on time, I'll take legal action.
You're trying to ruin me. Fine, if you won't help, I'll stay here and not leave.
Uncle Robert lay at our door, refusing to move. My mom laughed and ignored him. This house had been sold to a notorious village bully, and Uncle Robert was in the wrong place to cause trouble. We were planning to leave for the provincial capital that day, so my mom took me and left. When we arrived, I was amazed at the gift my mom had prepared. The villa was a Suzhou-style garden house, elegant and classical, with a 200-square-meter living room, a 100-square-meter bedroom, and a beautiful viewing platform on the second floor. Just walking around was a delight. I couldn't believe I would live here.
This house cost 20 million and is in your name.
Though I didn't understand her sudden change, she truly wanted to treat me like a princess. Tears filled my eyes.
Mom, thank you.
We hugged and cried, finally able to leave the past behind and be a carefree daughter in front of my mom. It felt wonderful. After some time, news of our new villa spread in the village. Aunt Lisa frequently called my mom, either checking on my life or my relationships, hoping to arrange a marriage for her son. My mom always brushed her off. Aunt Lisa mentioned that Uncle Robert, after causing trouble at our house, was beaten by the bully, breaking a leg. Living alone, he became mentally unstable, drinking heavily. As for Aunt Margaret and Cousin Tom, they returned to her parents' home but were eventually kicked out. Finding Uncle Robert in a terrible state, Aunt Margaret had to work odd jobs in the village. Cousin Tom dropped out of school and went to work, disappearing for a long time. But their lives no longer concerned us. I was now studying in the provincial capital, with stable grades and a bright future. With our improving family situation, I became more confident and cheerful. After years of suppression, I finally discovered my true self. My mom often stroked my head, thanking the heavens for a second chance to make amends.
What do you mean, Mom?
I can't say. If I do, what if this is all a dream and I wake up?